Boom boom, there we are. Recording once again. Today with an artist whose work I found, I think, via Instagram. So there's this funny thing about Instagram where you can create your own algorithm, despite people saying that the algorithm creates it's created for you. But funny, when you follow one person, there are like 10 or 15 more people recommended for you. So for example, let's say I follow Juan Marcos, the artist that we have today, Juan Marcos Rivera. Let's say I follow him, and then I'll get like 15 more Puerto Rican artists suggested, or at least Latino artists suggested. And from there, the algorithm I can create it on my own. So I believe I found Juan Marcos art that way. So yeah, here we are today. He's a visual artist who mostly focuses on anime or anime inspired works. So yeah, with that brief introduction done, Juan Marcos, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. As you might as well know, hot day, being that it is the summer in Puerto Rico, so that's not a weird
Hmm.
thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
we're surviving, drinking water, drinking water. So, dude, that was my super brief introduction. But for the people who don't know, what's your Instagram? What's your website if you have one? Let them know what you got going on.
So my social media pages, I have Instagram, I have Twitter, I have Blue Sky, I have YouTube. They're all under the same label. It's like, for example, YouTube/ J Marcos Art. You type at J Marcos Art and you'll get like all of my social media pages.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. So, with all that being said, of course, all the links will be in the bio. But going into your, I guess I wouldn't say like your artist journey. Let's put it that way. I was gonna say hero's journey, but you're an artist,
Mm,
so your artist journey. Um, I've been doing this for like 6 years or so, the interviews. So
okay.
it is fairly common to find that visual artists, they start off either by drawing on paper or drawing on the walls of their parents' house. So how did it all start for you? Was it that way as well? Was it giving you paper and you started drawing on the paper? Did you start ruining your parents' rooms? How did it all start?
Yeah, well, my earliest memories of me drawing, wow, I must have been like 6 years old, more or less, maybe.
Mm,
I do remember that my parents would buy me like these thick notebooks, and I would just take those notebooks and like draw comic book style art of like crossovers of characters from like anime and cartoons that I like. That's how it all started, and I basically was doing that, just doing like casual art throughout my elementary school, middle school life. It wasn't until I got to high school that I actually started taking art seriously. And that's something that I always tell people, that that's my biggest regret, because I say, man, if I had started taking art seriously way before that, I would be like much better right
mm,
now. But yeah, I started taking art seriously in high school. Um, Once I graduated high school, I wasn't sure what I wanted to study, and everybody told me, "Hey, you're an artist, maybe you could go like graphic arts and stuff." So I really wasn't sure, but I started studying graphic arts. And even though like graphic design focuses a lot more on like the corporate and like advertising part of art, it helped me a lot with understanding the software that I use today, like Photoshop and After Effects and the such. So after that, after I graduated as a graphic designer, I worked for a little while as a graphic artist, but I just like was feeling like, this is nice, but it's not really what I want to dedicate myself to do all my life. So then I started getting interested in animation. So I saw that here in Puerto Rico we had like Atlantic University.
mm.
So I like, got went to university, like asked for information, and I enrolled, and I was there for like 3 years, and I graduated as an animator. And now that I graduated, I've been working as a freelance animator for a couple of years.
Super cool, super cool. So you mentioned the whole thing about the software. Would you say that you prefer digital, working on digital rather than analog? Or
Yeah, these days I basically do everything digital. I
mm,
use analog if it's like for sketching out ideas and stuff, but mostly I do it digital today.
okay, okay. So as I scroll through your page, I noticed that a lot of your influences are obviously anime, uh,
Yeah.
but there are also video games. I saw that Shantae was one of them, KOF, one of my favorite
Hmm.
fighting games. So back when you were a kid, what were some of those cartoons and anime that inspired you? And what are some that today inspire you the most? Be it cartoon, be it anime, be it video games.
Well, when I was little, the one that most inspired me at the beginning was definitely Dragon Ball Z. I was a big Dragon Ball Z fan back in the day. I still am, but like back as a kid, I was like kind of obsessed. Then I also got into Beyblade. I used to draw a lot
Mm,
of like Beyblade fan art. I used to draw a lot of Mega Man fan art as a kid. Um, Nowadays, I would say that I have a lot of like different influences, but I would say that the biggest influences for me nowadays are like retro anime. Like when I was in college, I developed this love for retro anime, and I started watching a ton of retro anime, and I like used inspiration from that art style to like shape my art style today. So I would definitely say that when it comes to retro anime, my biggest inspirations I would say are like the old school Gundam shows,
mm.
you know, shows like that very 80s anime style.
Super cool, super cool. Um, you mentioned Beyblade. Uh, when Beyblade came out, I was more of like, I'll watch season one, but then I wasn't like too attached to it. Now, as
Mm.
a teacher, I've seen it come back. So I see s students that I teach playing with Beyblades. Um, do you think that's part of just culture being culture and Y2K culture coming back, or has it always persisted like Pokemon has across the years?
I think that Beyblade has kind of always persisted, not as the level at the level as Pokemon, because
Hmm.
like Pokemon is its own
Hmm.
super high level. But I do remember that I watched the original trilogy of Beyblade when I was little, and I do remember that a few years later they released another trilogy. It was called, I
Hmm.
think, the Metal Saga, and that ran for a few years, and then they released, I think it was Burst, and then after Burst, currently I think it's Beyblade X, the one that's running. So I think Beyblade has like been a constant thing.
Yeah, it's been part of the zeitgeist then. I thought it was
Yeah.
like just another thing that would come back naturally, but interesting. I didn't notice. Um, you also mentioned Mega Man. I'm a huge Mega Man fan, especially Mega Man the OG and Mega Man X. So,
Hmm.
what's your favorite Mega Man? Is it OG Mega Man, Mega Man X, Mega Man Battle Network, Mega Man Zero? Which one would you say is your favorite? I guess series or Mega Man Legends as well, you know?
So my favorite was always Mega Man X. I love Mega Man X games, even though those games are like super hard.
Mm,
I always loved them. I remember when I was little, I tried playing the Mega Man Zero games too, but I think they were too hard for me. I don't know why, because like X is also very hard, but for some reason Zero like never stuck with me. But last year I bought the Mega Man Zero collection for the
mm,
Switch, and I kind of got hooked on them again. So those are definitely my two favorites, X and Zero.
super cool. You mentioned that, and those are games that I have on my list on the Switch. I don't remember if I bought the Battle Network collection, but that's maybe something to consider for this summer. No. Um,
Yeah.
that said, you mentioned Switch. Do you have Super Smash? And if so, is Mega Man your main or no?
I have Smash Bros. And I love Smash Bros. I like playing as Mega Man in that game, but he's not my main.
Mm. Who would you say it is though?
My main is definitely Ike. He's been my main since
Mm.
Brawl.
Interesting, interesting choice. Um, all this being said, do you think Shantae deserves a spot in a future Super Smash if they have other guest characters come into the mix?
I think she definitely has like a spot. Like she deserves a spot because if I remember correctly, I think Shantae was like one of the very first like indie games that
Mhm.
became like widespread popular. So I think she definitely it would be fitting for the next Smash Bros. Yeah. I
And
don't
you're
know if they'll add her though, because I know that they're like very, like they want to keep the game like very family appropriate, and like Chante's outfit is a little bit revealing. So
mhm.
just for that, I don't know how good her chances are, but I think she would definitely be, she definitely deserves a spot in Smash.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree. Yeah, it might something might happen like what happened with I think Mai, is it from KOF, that she's not even part of the background characters because she's too revealing, quote unquote. But
Yeah.
yeah, that being said, so you do a lot of digital illustrations, but you studied animation. Right
Yeah.
now, if you had the choice, would you work on like a TV series or a movie or short films, or would you work on a video game?
Hmm. Well, if I had the choice, I think I would. Right now, I would like to work on like an animated series. Um, I have ideas that I've been like developing in the back of my mind, and I even wrote some down like as a script for kind of like a pilot of something that I would like to do. But I don't have the resources to do it yet. But I'm looking into it to see how I can get it done.
Awesome. Is it more inspired by like the anime, I guess, the shonen archetype, or is it more inspired by cartoons, or is it something completely new, or a mix of everything? I don't know. You tell me.
So the one I'm currently developing is more inspired by, like you said, the shonen archetype,
Mm,
because it's like this kind of story. I want it to feel like, that there are these types of anime that are, for example, like what I call to promote toys, like Beyblade, Yu-Gi-Oh, and stuff. And
mm,
usually they have like the characters going like tournaments and stuff. So I want to recreate kind of like that tournament feeling, but also mix it with like shonen type action.
mm. Interesting. And to some extent, Beyblade and Yu-Gi-Oh sort of kind of do that as well, to some extent,
Yeah.
because they have the tournaments as well. But I don't know, key aspects like the training uh journey that they always do is not that present. But yeah, I get the vibe. I get the vibe. So if given the opportunity, would you like to do that here in Puerto Rico, or would you go to Japan if necessary, or the States if necessary to develop that idea?
So actually, when it comes to that specific idea, I would love to do it here in Puerto Rico, because
Mm,
I'm the world I'm developing. I want the story to take place here in Puerto Rico. I want it to feel like, okay, this is inspired by anime, sure, but it's like representing our culture. So I would like, if possible, to do it with like in Spanish, if possible, with Puerto Rican voice actors, so they have
mm.
like the real Puerto Rican accent and stuff. Reference our culture, reference it like real places here in Puerto Rico, and that's like my goal. I would love if I had the chance to do it like that.
And that's a fucking beautiful goal, man. As someone who's been, I wouldn't say I've been the most uh observant of the scene because I just do what I can. But when it comes to animation and film and documentaries are always like the top-notch thing. Like people are always giving money towards that. Then music
Hmm.
videos, and then animation and long feature movies, like they kind of stick in the back end of things. So I would love to see a renaissance of animation in Puerto Rico, in the Puerto Rican film scene. So um, hopefully this type of work can get that ball rolling, if you know what I mean. Um,
Yeah, I would love to see that too. I have noticed lately though that there have been like some animation studios popping up here in Puerto Rico, and I'm like super happy to see that.
no, yeah, definitely. The work that Atlantic University and other similar colleges are doing here in Puerto Rico, or people who are just coming back from the States or whatever, it's really helping the scene somewhat get more experimental in terms of like, hey, like let's give animation a shot. No,
Hmm.
um, it might be more expensive, but it can be worth it. It can be pretty cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, so every time I get to interview people who are somewhat related to the field of animation, I always gotta ask them this question.
Hmm.
Uh, Into the Spider-Verse, do you think it was a game changer?
Oh yeah, definitely, 100%.
Mm. Would you see yourself, if possible, like collaborating in that type of project? A project that experiments with a variety of animating styles and just going for it?
I would love to. Spider Verse, they have like a, even though it's like 3D, they use 3D models and stuff. They also use a lot of 2D effects,
Mhm.
like complement the 3D action. Like I really don't have that much experience animating in 3D, but if I got the chance to like somehow, um, pitch in the 2D side, I would definitely love to.
Would you like to do it, like, say the opportunity comes like right now? If you had the budget, would you do it with something original, or would you rather take a shot with something that's IP and somewhat, I guess, quote unquote, secure before taking a shot with something that's more original per se?
Hmm. When it comes to doing it in like that Spider Verse style, you mean?
Yeah.
Hmm. Honestly, I haven't thought about that. If I would rather do it an IP or an original project. I think thinking about it right now, it would be cooler to do it in like an original project because
Mm.
like you said, Spider Verse, they're the one that like came up with that art style, with that like animation style that combines 3D, 2D. Sometimes they like purposely use lower frame rates to simulate 2D action. But I would like to also see like other projects doing something similar. So it would be cool to do it in like a new IP.
Totally agree. If it were up to me, I would even take it instead of a PG movie, take it to an R-rated movie, see how it goes. But
Yeah, it has so much potential. Like there's so many things that people can do visually in that style
definitely.
that yeah.
Um, that said, I was also gonna ask. So yesterday, I watched, what movie was it? I watched four movies, but one of them, oh, I watched F1, the Formula One movie.
Oh, okay.
And the way that velocity and speed is captured in that movie is fucking amazing. So it got me to thinking, what if Nintendo adapted F-Zero into a live action or an animated movie? And now that we're talking about Spider-Man and the animation into Spider-Verse, do you think that that art style would lend itself into something like F-Zero?
I think yeah. I've never thought about it, but F's like an F-Zero animated movie with that art style. I think it would look amazing for sure.
I mean, I know there's a movie, an anime movie that's in all about a race. I haven't seen it, but back a few years ago, my friends were like telling me to watch it and whatnot. But yeah, that animation would be pretty cool. Might be expensive, and I don't know if Nintendo would approve it, but it would be super cool to see Captain Falcon running in that speed, in that animation style as well. Um, Talking about video games and stuff like that, have you seen the new Marvel fighting game that's coming up?
I saw that it was announced, but I still haven't seen the trailer.
Oh man, I think have you played Marvel vs. Capcom or any of those games?
Yeah, so that's the thing. The reason why I haven't watched the trailer is because I have played like traditional fighting games, but I'm so bad at them that I think the only fighting game that I play well is Smash, and that's because Smash is more casual
Mm.
friendly. You don't have to memorize so many combos and stuff. So I'm like terrible at fighting games, but I have played Marvel versus Capcom a couple of times. Yeah.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. I'm a big fighting game fan, but I'm no expert by any means. I'm more of a I'll play it because I love the character designs and whatnot, and I love
Mm.
the just watching the backgrounds, the music. I love it all. So if you play Marvel vs. Capcom, I think you will love the animation in the new Marvel game because it's more of like the Guilty Gear style.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's the same studio who did the Guilty Gear games and Dragon Ball Fighters.
Ah, yeah. I have played Dragon Ball Fighters a few times with my friends when they bring it over. And even though I'm not good at the game, I really love how it looks. just for the visual spectacle, I love playing that game. So if the Marvel one looks like that, then I think I should check it out.
It's more towards like it's more towards that style, and it's more of like how Marvel sometimes does like more Japan oriented stories or anime styled stories. Well, the animation
Yeah.
is also pretty anime inspired, so they let go of the Americanized versions of the characters. So
Oh,
uh
really?
yeah, yeah, uh,
That's interesting.
yeah, and it's a 4-on-4 fighting game, so it's bound to be chaos. Let's put it that way. Um, but the point of the of bringing up the game was Marvel versus Capcom. So
Mhm.
is Mega Man also a character that you use often when you play those games?
Um, So the last Marvel versus Capcom that I played, I think it was Marvel versus Capcom 3. I think it was the original version because I think they released another one later that had like Phoenix Wright and some other characters.
Mhm.
But I'm pretty sure that the original version, the only Mega Man character was Zero,
Yeah.
and I think I use Zero quite a lot. Yeah, because like I'm a big um I'm a big gamer and I'm a big anime fan, but I'm not really that big into like American comics. So a lot
Mm.
of times I would just use the Capcom characters more than the Marvel ones. So Zero was definitely one of my most used characters.
Awesome. Awesome. And I don't blame you. I mean, back when I was a kid playing Marvel vs. Capcom 2 with my cousin, uh, I was bad at playing the game, but even then I knew that Mega Man was not that big of a deal of a character. Like it's not one of the top tier characters, let's put it that way. And I would still pick
Hmm.
Mega Man because he was my good. He was my dude, he was the shit. And I would often lean towards like balancing some Street Fighter or Capcom characters with uno que otro. For people who don't know that word, it means like uh one or two characters that were from
Hmm.
Marvel. So I don't know. I would pick Mega Man with like Cable and Ryu, or I would pick Doctor Doom with Mega Man and whoever it was. So yeah.
Hmm.
Um, all of this being said, shifting things from video games towards more illustration and the stuff that you do. Um, when it comes to your creative process, do you have some ideas written down and you sit down and just start doodling or start drawing, or do you just go with more of a free flow type of process? And I also mentioned that at least when I play video games, something that draws me to them a lot is the music. When you're
Hmm.
in your creative process, do you have music that allows you to, I don't know, work even more free, or do you prefer to just simply draw with no distractions?
Well, when it comes to the ideas, so I would say a little bit of both. I usually write ideas in like a notepad, or like, hey, maybe I can do this. Once I'm done with this project, I can do that. But sometimes I write so many ideas down that I look at the list and I'm like, oh my god, I don't know what the heck I'm gonna do with all this. So I just like forget about the list and just like randomly, let's say I'm playing a game and I'm like, hey, maybe I could make a fan art of this character and just ignore the rest of my ideas that I have written down. So I would say a little bit of both. And you mentioned the music. Oh yeah, while I'm working, I a lot of times I just put music and to kind of like pump myself. It's usually OSTs, whether it's from games or from like anime that I watch. But yeah, that really helps me focus because sometimes, let's say I'm working on an illustration or an animation and I'm just working on it normally, I feel like I start to get bored and I'm like, wait, no, put some music on, let me put on my headphones, and that like revitalizes my inspiration.
Hmm.
So I'd say that listening to music definitely helps me focus a lot on my work.
Awesome, awesome. Um, Going back to anime a little bit, as I mentioned a little earlier yesterday, I watched a few movies at the cinema, and across the past, I'd say 5 or 6 years, there's been like a big boom of anime movies coming to Puerto Rico. Um,
Yeah.
do you see yourself, do you see that happening even more across the following years, or do you think people are gonna grow tired of the J-pop slash Japanese culture and K-pop slash Korean culture boom that's happening? Like, I know since the 2010s has been a big thing in the Western side of the world. Do you think people would get a little bit tired of it eventually?
I don't think so. I think that um uh this day and age, I think that anime has become like so mainstream even here in Puerto Rico that I actually think that in the near future movie theaters will actually bring more.
Mm,
Like for example, a few months ago they released in Caribbean cinemas the movie of like the latest Gundam show, the Gundam G Cox, which is basically it was like a compilation of the first three episodes of the anime, and I couldn't believe it because I was like, I've been a Gundam fan my entire life, and I would have never thought that they would release one in Caribbean cinemas because even the previous Gundam movie, which was like the Seed Freedom movie in Japan, that broke records, that gained so much money in the box office, and they didn't bring it over to Caribbean cinema. So I felt like, oh, they're not gonna bring this one over either, but they did. And I think this is like a sign that they're starting to take like a little bit more risks with like
mm.
the anime movies that they bring.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree on that. I was gonna ask, since you're a big Gundam fan, like you mentioned that you like Gundam, but now that I find out you're a huge Gundam fan, do you have figurines
Mhm.
in your house? And if so, how many?
I'm addicted to Gunpla. I have in my room, I have a bunch of Gunpla figures that I built, and I joke around with my girlfriend all the time. Whenever I buy a new Gunpla, I tell her like, "Look, I'm feeding my addiction. I have a problem."
Yeah, I've noticed that lately Lego has become a big thing again. So
Mm,
Gundam is your thing then. Building out
yeah.
Gundams. Super cool, super cool. Um, is that a goal in the future? Like go visit Japan and go see the huge Gundam that's I think is it in Tokyo? I don't really remember the location, but yeah.
Oh yeah, I have gone to Japan a few times, and I
Mm,
have seen the one in Odaiba Gundam base, which is the Gundam unicorn that once it's nighttime, it like the armor opens up and like the red lights start glowing. I wanted to see the Yokohama one, but when I did go to Yokohama, they were already like taking the statue down. I mean, it wasn't a statue because it moved, but they were like taking it down.
mm,
But this year I went to the World Expo in Osaka, and the Gundam that they had at the Gundam Pavilion actually, if I remember correctly, used a lot of parts from the Yokohama one.
mm.
So in a way, I can say I more or less did see it, except that it was in this new form. So yeah, it's like those big real size Gundam statues, like they look cool in photos, but like once you go see them in person, it's like really impressive.
I can imagine. I mean, I remember not too long ago I went to New York with my wife and I was it was one of those mind-blowing moments where you realize like holy fucking shit. Like how did people manage to create this whole fucking city and make it work?
Hmm.
And when you put it into perspective, it's like amazing. So watching one of those Gundams, as huge as it is also another mind-blowing thing to watch, you know? Because I can just imagine you like building one of the one of the figures, and it must be a
Yeah.
daunting task. Imagine actually like building the huge thing. So
Yeah, especially since they move.
mm,
Like, it's not only keeping it, proportions correct, making it look good, um, keeping it balanced so it doesn't fall down, but also having it move. Like the engineers who did that, they must be like real masters of their craft.
indeed, indeed. Um, since we're talking about Gundams, do you think, based on your visits to Japan, is Gundam more popular than Godzilla, or do they balance each other out? I know Godzilla is obviously way more is he's older, but
Yeah,
you know,
that's really hard to say because they're both still like, especially in Japan, you see Godzilla stuff and you see Gundam stuff everywhere.
mm,
Like even where you least expect it. I remember when I was there last month, I saw they were selling like this alcoholic beverage. I don't remember exactly what it was, if it was a wine but they had like Godzilla on the bottle, and I was like, never in my life would I think that they had like Godzilla, alcohol. But then in that same store, they had like Gundam snacks, and I
Mm.
was like, oh my god, that's crazy. So it's really hard to say because like over there, especially, they're still both like super popular.
I mean, they are staples of the culture, much like Goku and Pikachu, of course. Um,
Yeah,
Maybe that alcoholic beverage gives you the atomic breath. Who knows? Who knows?
that would be epic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So obviously, a few years ago, well, not a few years ago, it's been a decade, or more. Pacific Rim was released. It showed us a bit of the possibilities of what a Gundam movie might look like. Do
Hmm.
you think a live action Gundam movie would be today? Would it be an awesome feast for the eyes, or would you still prefer it to be animated?
Well, I would definitely prefer to be animated, but I think they announced that a live action Gundam movie is in the works
Mm,
currently. So we're getting one whether we want to or not. So I guess I'm, what do they say? I'm like a little bit optimistic,
yeah.
but not like super hopeful because I know that a lot of times like live action movie adaptations of anime aren't super good. I know there have been a good few ones. Like I think Alita Battle Angel was a really good anime adaptation.
Mm,
So I'm a little bit optimistic, but I'm not holding my breath. I hope they do it well, but you never know, right?
yeah, yeah. I don't know. Like, I knew that they're working on a Voltron thing, but I didn't know about the
Mm.
Gundam thing. Is it gonna be based on one of the original stories, or is it gonna be its own new story?
Yeah, so we don't know because they only announced like, hey, Gundam live action Gundam movie in the works, but they
Mm,
haven't revealed anything about the story. I know I was talking with my friends a while ago, and we were like discussing like, hey, is it gonna be original? Is it gonna be based on the shows? And my personal opinion, I would like it if it was like an original story,
mm,
because Gundam by itself already has so many different timelines
mm, mm.
that if they do something original, they're not necessarily going to be tied down by like, hey, let's do this so the fans don't get angry that we change stuff. So I think it would be better if they just did like an original story with the Gundam name.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. As long as they keep the cool robots, the cool mechas, I think people would be open to it a little bit more. Let's put it that way. Um, so since you're a huge Gundam fan, I assume that you have your um specific series that you prefer. But as somebody who grew up, I grew up with Toonami, so I knew Mobile Suit
Mhm.
Gundam existed. However, I did
Yeah.
not sit down and watch it. What I did sit down and watch was G Gundam, the shonen version of Gundam, basically.
I love G Gundam.
That was my question. What's your opinion on it?
I think G Gundam is awesome. Like, they wanted to do something different from the traditional ones, and they were like, you know what, let's do the craziest Gundam story we can think of. They added like shonen, Dragon Ball powers,
Mhm.
martial arts, super robot elements. It's like such a crazy show, but even though it's super different, I think they managed to do it really well. And I did watch G Gundam when I was little, and even to this day, it's still one of my favorite Gundam shows of all time.
Awesome, awesome. Do you think do you think it lends itself to be a good gateway show for the entirety of the Gundam series?
I don't think so because like if you watch G Gundam first, you're gonna watch all the other shows and it's gonna be like this is super different. I think G Gundam, it could be, you could enjoy it if you're like, okay, I know this show is very different from other Gundam shows, so I'm just gonna enjoy it like its own thing.
Mhm.
But if you're gonna use it to like, hey, this is the first series in this long franchise, you're probably gonna be a little bit confused when you watch all the other ones.
Yeah, especially with the style and everything. Like for someone who's a fighting game fan, G Gundam is like the perfect one. But if you're more
Mm,
into like strategy or war games or what have you, then you should watch another Gundam series. Definitely. Um,
yeah.
Now that I mention it, I think if they could adapt G Gundam into live action, I think it would be a bit easier, especially taking the Pacific Rim example, since they already had national mechas. I remember
Yeah,
there was a Chinese one that had like three arms or something like that, right?
I think so. Yeah.
So they have sort of kind of a blueprint that they could follow, maybe. I don't know. Could be interesting. Um,
Yeah, I don't know if it would be like a good idea, because one of the things that I like about G Gundam is that a lot of the Gundams are very goofy. They're like purposely meant to be goofy, and I don't think that would translate very well to live action.
yeah, yeah, definitely. They could not make a live action mecha with a sombrero hat work. That would not fly. That would not fly.
Probably not.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so the time is winding down on this session, so I'm gonna
Mhm.
stop it and then I'll send you a link so we can finish up on the next section. Okay?
Okay.
No. Pero antes de proseguir con el podcast, ¿sabrían que soy un autor? Sí, pueden conseguir mi libro a través de Amazon. Simplemente escriban Fernando Correa González en Amazon. Eso es Fernando Correa González en Amazon. O si no, pueden ir a Bandcamp y buscar la versión audio de mis libros bajo el mismo nombre, Fernando Correa González en Bandcamp. Eso es Fernando Correa González en Bandcamp. Y ahora seguimos con el interview. And boom, boom, there we are, round two with Juan Marcos Rivera. Uh, dude, we were talking about G Gundam. A lot of the mechas in that series are, let's be honest, pretty stereotypical. Like for example, the
Yeah.
Mexican Gundam wears a sombrero hat. The Dragon Gundam is a representative of China. But let's say if we got a Puerto Rican Gundam in there, what do you think you would add as far as like the stereotypical thing that those Gundams used? For example, I would add it would need to have swords. I don't
Mhm.
know if a pava, but it would definitely have to have the koki sound. It would have to be used in some way, shape, or form. Let's put it that way.
So it's funny because I don't know if you noticed, but recently the app WhatsApp, they added like an AI thing that you can ask questions to it. So my friends and I randomly asked it like, "Hey, what would a Puerto Rican Gundam in G Gundam be like?"
Mm,
So now my response is like very influenced by what the AI said, but I remember the AI said like, "Oh, it could be like called the Borinquen Gundam, and it could have like to represent like the rich musical culture that Puerto Rico has. It could has like dancing techniques. It also said like it could have like knives, with like designs of like the Taino gods and stuff.
mm.
So you know the when my friends and I were using that AI, we were just using it to mess around. But I actually, honestly, I was like, you know what? The AI is actually cooking with this. That actually sounds pretty good.
It definitely is. Definitely is. I was also gonna mention that I remember that when I was cooking up this question, something came into my mind. I remember that Bad Bunny used to have like a third eye with part
Mm.
of his wardrobe back in the day. So I don't know, maybe when he takes off the baba, there's a third eye that shoots some sort of beam or something. I don't know. It would be interesting.
Yeah, that would be like a cool attack.
Yeah. I don't remember if there was a fighting game for that series, but it's a sad thing that if it didn't happen, it didn't happen. Um, all this being said, going back to like your creative process and whatnot, I know that for a lot of animation students, they sometimes have to work collaboratively with other animation students, but they
Yeah.
also have to do like a animation project on their own, sometimes with people helping out, but mostly on their own. So, based on your experiences, what would be, like talk to me about your experience working on an animation project solo versus an animation project with other people involved. How was that for you?
Mhm. Do you want me to talk about it for like a student projects? It could be more professional projects.
Either or.
Mm. Well, I do remember. So I'm gonna start with my experience, like when I was a student. So I remember, like you said, that we had in Atlantic University, we had like two big projects. There was one called for a class called Advanced Animation Project. That was one. That one was solo. So you had to like come up with the idea yourself, like develop the script, the storyboards, and stuff, and do it all by yourself in those 3 months, like the best you could. but then after that we had like the capstone, I think it was called. So that was more collaborative.
Mhm.
I do remember that the team I had was pretty good. We ran into some issues along the way because that was when COVID started.
Mm.
So since it was like remote, sometimes it was a little bit hard to get in touch with like some of the other members of the group. And something that was a little bit challenging to me personally, um, is because like we were when we were developing like the original idea, we weren't really sure in like which direction to take it. So the professor just went like, you know what, you guys are overcomplicating it. Just do this, and he gave us like a very simple idea, and he even told us like use a very simple art style. And at first I was like, okay, sure, let's do it. But then as the project kept going, I realized, this is not the type of story and the type of art style that I'm used to working on.
Mm.
So it was a little bit challenging for me, but I would say it was still pretty rewarding once I saw it done. That was like more on the student side. So on the professional side, a lot of times when I do animation commissions, what I do is that I basically am like the director of the animation. If it's like a very, very small project, I can just do it by myself. But if it's a little longer, I usually get other people to help me. Obviously, I pay them for their work.
Mm.
Usually, I get people to help me with the cleanup, the colors, and the background art. And honestly, like that's really, really big help. Especially the background art. Not minimizing, the other like the cleanup artists and like the coloring artists, but it's just that once you're done doing the animations and then you have to do the backgrounds, you're like already so tired. It's like, oh man, now I have to do this too. So I feel like just having someone take care of the backgrounds is like such a big help. Um, but yeah, that's usually the way I've been doing it. Usually just like a small team.
Mm.
I think professional projects that I have been in charge of, I think the biggest team that I've had have been like maybe like 3 or 4 people.
Mm.
So I usually work as part of a smaller team.
Gotcha, gotcha. It's a small team, but back in the day, that would get you Mortal Kombat 1. Because
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah.
that I think that game had like maximum 5 or 6 people. So excluding the actors, of course. But yeah, still, communication is a key. And if it's not existing in that type of collaborative work, then it's gonna be even tougher. So
Mhm.
you mentioned backgrounds. So um what would you say is your favorite part of animation or illustration? Would you prefer character design? Would you prefer backgrounds? Would you prefer I don't know, items? What would you say is your favorite part of illustration and animation as a whole?
For me, definitely, without a doubt, my favorite part is the characters. But I have accepted. I at first I didn't want to accept it, but I've come to accept it that hey, even though I love drawing characters, I also need to get better at backgrounds
Mm.
and objects and stuff. Like I've also always been pretty bad at drawing like cars and vehicles. So lately I was like, you know what? No, I love drawing characters, but let's do more backgrounds. Let's do more objects. Let's do more cars. Like right now, yesterday, I started working on like a personal art project of illustration, and I was like, you know what? Let's have the character pose with like a car in the background just because I need to practice drawing cars. So,
Mm. Good, 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 good. Getting out of that comfort zone and experimenting more, always
yeah.
necessary, especially on a field that though there are a lot of animators out there, when it comes to big businesses, they tend to basically grind people to the bone, especially when it comes
Hmm.
to crunch time. So
Yeah.
it's good to have a lot of tools at your disposal. Um, that being said, I know that you're focused on digital art and 2D animation, but are you also interested in 3D animation or stop motion? Would that interest you at some point?
I'm not sure. I did do a little bit of 3D animation when I was back in Atlantic.
Mm.
Um, and I think that process helped me realize like I can appreciate 3D animation, but it's not my thing, you know.
That being said as well, early on in the interview, you mentioned like some of the series that inspired you back in the day, today. We've talked a little bit about video games as well,
Mhm.
be it Mega Man, be it Smash, etc. But what would you say are like we talked about Spider-Verse, but what would you say are like three or five animated movies that inspired you all across the board?
Well, people when people ask me that question, to me, it's usually a little bit hard to say like, "Oh, this is the movie that inspired me to become an animator," because I feel like I've been interested in like animation pretty much all my life, so I can't really pinpoint what was the thing that inspired me. But there is one movie that when I was feeling like very down, like man, animation is so hard, I should quit. It actually inspired me to keep going. It was ironically enough a 3D movie, the Dragon Ball superhero movie.
Mhm.
I remember when that movie came out, I was like in the dumps. I was like, man, I'm really not good at this. I maybe I should quit, get another job. But then I saw that movie and I was like so pumped, almost like when I was a kid watching Dragon Ball again. And I was like, you know what? Like, in what other job am I gonna get the chance to like, make the stories that I want to make a reality, you know? So I saw that movie and I was so hyped and I was like, no, I gotta keep going, I can't give up.
That's beautiful, man. You mentioned Dragon Ball. Early on in the interview, you mentioned that Dragon Ball is one of your favorites. So,
Yeah.
not too long ago, Toriyama passed away. So, how did it hit
Yeah.
you when you learned about it?
Man, it was so sad because it was like so unexpected because Toriyama, he was, I think, in his 50s, so he was still like pretty young.
Mm.
And at first I saw that and I was like, there's no way. I looked it up and when I learned that it was real, I was like kind of in shock. Um, because of like the legacy that he's left. Like he left a big impact in like the anime industry in general. And another thing was like because when he passed, I think even still to this day, Dragon Ball Super is still like ongoing. So I remember a lot of fans were like thinking, "Oh, what's gonna happen to Dragon Ball Super now? Are they just gonna leave it there in hiatus? Sorry, are they gonna like cancel it?" So it was like, what are they gonna do? So in both those aspects, it was like a little bit shocking.
I totally get you. For me, it was one of those, you know how there's a lot of people who get shocked and they come to tears when a celebrity
Mhm.
dies? That
Yeah,
was like the second or third time that happened to me. One of them was Mac Miller, another was MF Doom. But Toriyama, I guess for the connection, since I was raised with
yeah.
it, watching it on Toonami as a kid and everything, well, and I was there with my wife too. She's also a big Dragon Ball fan, so it hit home. Let's put it that way. Um, who would you say is your favorite Dragon Ball character or your favorite Dragon Ball arc? Let's put it that way.
Well, my favorite Dragon Ball character, I think that has changed so much throughout the years. I remember when I was little, at first, my favorite character was Vegeta.
Mm.
Then, when I got a little bit older, my favorite character was Trunks. Then, at some point, Broly became my favorite character. I think that nowadays, I would say that my favorite character is probably Gohan because I
Mm.
think that now as an adult, I can really appreciate more the fact that, Gohan is a character that has like a lot of potential, but he doesn't like to fight. So like in the eyes of like other characters from the Dragon Ball universe, they could feel like, oh, Gohan has such a good potential, but he's like wasting it. But it's like, no, man, the guy just wants to live a happy life with his family. Come on. So
Mm.
he fights because he has no choice. So I feel that as an adult, I can really appreciate that side of his character a lot more.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's even though he's half human, half alien, he's more human than alien to some extent. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He grabs onto the alien side, the Saiyan side, of course, when it's necessary. Let's put it that way.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, when I was a kid, obviously Goku was my favorite, but now as an adult, for some reason, Krillin has always been the one who's clicked with me. Like he's a loyal friend, he's a humble guy, but he's also like sort of a mentor when he needs to be. So yeah. Also, Piccolo's pretty cool. So and he's got
Oh yeah,
maximum levels of swag as well. So
yeah. Piccolo's awesome. I was so happy when in the superhero movie they finally gave him like a good power up with the orange Piccolo.
mhm.
I was like, finally, he really deserves something after all these years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, as far as arcs go, which one would you say is your favorite saga or arc?
My favorite saga. That's hard to say. I feel like all the Dragon Ball Z arcs, it's hard to pinpoint the favorite one, but I would say maybe the Cell arc, just because like out of the three main villains, Frieza, Cell, and Boo, Cell is like my favorite.
Mm.
I think he, like you said earlier, just like Piccolo, he has a lot of swag compared to like the others. Because Frieza, he's like arrogant, you know, so he kind of like you just hate him. Oh, just shut up, you arrogant jerk, whatever. But I feel Cell is also kind of arrogant, but they made him, you know, kind of like cool arrogant, especially when he's like, in like his perfect form.
Yeah.
So I've always felt that Cell is my favorite out of the three main ones. So just because of that, I would say that the Cell arc is my favorite. But honestly, I like all of them.
No, yeah, I totally get you. I would say though that I prefer everything Dragon Ball until the Cell Saga. When it comes to the
Mm,
Majin Buu saga, it became a little too wonky at times. So, like you could tell that Toriyama was tired. But
yeah.
um, even though it has its highs, there's definitely a lot of lows in that series. But definitely Dragon Ball original up until Cell for me is like perfection. Um, that being said, any other we've talked about Dragon Ball, we've talked about Gundam. Any other
Mm.
anime that you feel it's very important to understanding your trajectory as an artist?
Well, there's an anime that I feel not only influenced my art style, but also influenced like the type of humor that I use when I make like my animations. I don't know if you've heard of it because it's kind of niche. It's
Hmm.
an anime from the 90s called Marchan Successor Nadesco. That's
No idea.
never. No, it's a mecha anime that's a parody of other mecha
Mm,
animes. Basically, it has its serious moments and it has like cool fights sometimes, but in its heart, it's a parody. And
mm.
I love that show so much. I would say to me that's just my favorite anime of all time, just because like I've rewatched it a bunch of times, and you know I love the characters, I love the music, I love the mecha designs, and I love how they not only parody mecha anime, but they also do a good job at parodying like otaku culture.
Mm.
And in a way, when I watch that show, I feel very called out, but it's also just really cool because they represent otaku culture in a funny but also pretty realistic way.
Awesome, awesome. It's always good to find one of those, be it a movie or a series or what have you, that reminds you that hey, uh, you might be a nerd at something, but sometimes it could be good to be self-aware of it, you know?
Yeah,
So yeah. Um, that's it. Early on, you mentioned that Beyblade was a big thing in your life. Along that air, and we've mentioned that mecha anime specifically is very important in your life as well. So I
yeah.
gotta ask, when Beyblade came out, when Yu-Gi-Oh came out, Metabots was also a thing. Were you a big fan of that as well?
Yeah, sadly, I never watched Metabot when I was little. I don't know what channel they showed it because I don't remember ever seeing it on TV.
I think it was on Fox. Yeah, on Fox.
Ah, Fox. Yeah, no wonder. I hardly ever watched Fox.
Mm.
But I'm sure that if I would have had the chance to watch it, I probably would have loved it.
Yeah, yeah. I think they showed because they had a mix of like Toonami. They had American animation, but also Japanese. So they had Ninja Turtles, the one from that era, but
Mm.
they also had uh what was this character's name? Ultimate Muscle, which was wrestling
Ah,
anime.
yeah.
But they also had Metabots and Fighting Furons, which was like Pokemon but with food. Let's put it that way. So
Yeah, Fighting Food on. Yeah, I heard of that show maybe last year.
mm,
Before that, I had never heard of it before, and I remember the video I saw. I was like, "Wait, this anime was a thing?"
yeah,
I never, because like Metabots, at least I knew it existed, but that one I was like, that one went completely off my radar. I had no idea it was a
yeah.
thing.
All three of those shows were like The one that I watched the most was Metabots. Ultimate
Mm,
Muscle and Fighting Photons were like I would watch them, but let's say I would watch one today, I would miss like 5 episodes, and then I would watch two more. It was like that
mm,
type of thing. Because the thing about at least those shows, Toonami you could watch from Monday through Friday, but with
yeah.
Fox you could watch it only on like Saturdays. So I don't know, I would miss the routine, I guess, part of it. Um, that being said, dude, we've talked about a lot of shows, a lot of movies, a lot of video games, a little bit about your creative process. So let's focus more a little bit on you. What are you working
Mm.
on right now that you could share or that is upcoming that you could probably talk about a little bit?
Well, right now, I'm working on a couple of projects for other teams. So right now, I'm working as an animator for the game. Have you seen like the comic Gospel Samurai?
I've heard of it, but I have not seen it per se.
Yeah, so they're actually working on like a video game of that comic, like adapting that video game, and I'm currently doing like the sprite animation for that. That's
Mm,
one of the things that I'm working on. I'm also working on, and I don't know how much I'm allowed to actually say about this, but there's this animation studio here in Puerto Rico that recently they started making rounds on social media. They're called Nolux Studio.
mhm.
So I'm working with them on like their animated project. Again, I'm not sure how much I can share about that because honestly I forgot to ask like the people in charge. But like maybe you can get in touch with them. I don't know if you have already got in touch with them, but like they're working on this animated project called Whispers of the Vessel,
Mm,
which is like a dark fantasy story. It's not anime style like I usually do. It
mm.
leans more towards like American style, kind of like that art style used on like DC cartoons, for example. But it's still an art style that I really like. So even though it's not what I'm used to, I do really like the look of it too.
Interesting. Busy man, busy days, busy
Yeah.
schedule. Um, okay, cool, cool, cool. As far as like personal projects go, are you working on anything, be it an illustration or your own, I don't know, ideas for a short film or what have you? You mentioned the pilot that you've been cooking for a while, but anything personal that you're also working on?
Well, right now I am doing a short animation. It's like the purpose of that animation. It's mostly to practice, but in a way, I'm also doing it to promote, precisely the pilot, the idea that I told you about earlier.
Mm,
So I'm making a short animation with those characters. Right now, I've only shared like the works in progress, like the previews of the first half. Um, but yeah, I'm working on that. It should be It should be uploaded soon, at least the first half, because I already have like the colors done. I already have the special effects. The only thing that I need to finish is the background art, and I think I can probably get that done this week. So once I'm done with the background art, I just take the video into like After Effects, add like some special, compositing effects and stuff, some lightings and shadows, and probably upload it before the end of the week.
awesome. Would that be on your YouTube or your Instagram or
Probably on both.
awesome, awesome. And with that being said, where can people like what are the exact handles so people can find it?
The exact handles for my social media.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so my social media accounts, they're always under the same handle. It's J Marcos Art. No spaces, no underscores, just everything at J Marcos Art. So you type, for example, twitter.com/J Marcos Art, you'll get my profile. Instagram/J Marcos Art, you'll find me. Even YouTube is the same handle too.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, dude, before closing things out, um, another quick question, but one that might uh be a big ask. So,
Mm.
my 9 to 5, if we can put it that way, is being a teacher. Mostly high school students from ninth to 12th grade. So, I'm 33. I'm pretty sure you're much younger than I am. So, maybe the students might connect with your advice if you have any
Mm.
to provide. So, For those kids who want to be either illustrators, digital artists, or animators, what would be your advice to them?
Well, first of all, I'm not like that much younger. I'm 30, believe it or not.
Okay, okay.
So my advice, um, well, for my advice, I have like a couple of things that I usually tell people, um, depending on what level they are already, like they could maybe, use the advice or like give it to other people. But like I would say like, hey, if you're aiming to do this like professionally, obviously like the basics, you gotta like study, you gotta like look up tutorials and stuff. Like obviously, art as a profession is also like you have to do a lot of like sacrifices because you have to sacrifice a lot of your time. Like maybe you have to sacrifice maybe hanging out with your friends from time to time so you can practice. But like never give up, don't give up. And something that I really recommend to people, and it's something that I maybe didn't do as well when I was a student and I regret it. Once in your like art school or like animation school, it's good to like make friends but also like make contacts, because
Mm,
usually you get hired due to contacts. Because like when it comes to art jobs and animation jobs, like a lot of times there are like so many people applying to the same job that are on the same level or maybe even a little higher level than you, that if you have a contact or like people who can recommend you, it's a lot easier to get like gigs. I remember one of the biggest animation gigs that I gotten. It was precisely due to another art friend of mine, that someone approached them and asked them like, "Hey, do you know like any animators that I could get in touch with?" And then like they they recommended me, and I'm pretty sure that if it hadn't been for that other artist friend, maybe that client would have never found me. So it's always important to like make connections and stuff, and like never give up. I know it sounds like kind of cheesy, but it's like definitely perseverance is a very important part of this career, because like this career is like it can be pretty hard on like your mental health. And that's also another thing, like it can be pretty hard on your mental health. So if you need a time to like maybe disconnect from social media and stuff, take your time. Maybe you lose engagement for a few weeks, but you can always get that engagement back. That's what I was doing actually now. When I was in Japan, I actually decided, you know what, I'm gonna disconnect from social media because it was really stressing me out. And now that I'm back in Puerto Rico, and like, you know what, it's time to like get back into social media. Try to get more, connect with other people, get more engagement and stuff. So it's necessary to like also look out for your mental health.
definitely, 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 definitely. Japan, a good escape for anybody?
Oh yeah, Japan is great. Obviously, like the biggest difficulty, the language barrier for
Mm,
sure.
mm,
Japanese is very difficult, and it's also like very different from Spanish and English. Um, and contrary to what many people think, there are a lot of places in Japan in which like they don't speak any English.
mm.
So like you need to know even just like at least a little bit so you can like survive. But once you got the language thing down, it's really good. I really recommend, like, if you get the chance to go, like, definitely at least you have to go once in your life.
Awesome, awesome. I'm trying to convince my wife because her sister is living in Osaka. So
Oh, really?
yeah, her husband is a military dude. So let's see if it happens. Let's see if it happens. Denise, we have to see Denise, We have to see her. So
Hmm.
that being said, dude, again, your social media so people can find your work or ask for commissions or for collaborations or what have you.
Yeah. Handle is J Marcos Art. No spaces, no underscore. Just Instagram.com/, J Marcos Art. The same with YouTube, Facebook, Blue Sky, Twitter. Just the website /J Marcos Art.
Awesome, awesome. Um, Look, dude, first things first, thank you for saying yes for the interview. Um, I know we've had to reschedule at least once or twice or more, but finally
Yeah.
we did it. Um, Second thing, I don't know in what part of Puerto Rico you're living in right now, but stay healthy, stay hydrated because it's summer, Caribbean summer. You know how it is.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know
it's
how it.
intense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So stay hydrated. And third, I'll be on the lookout. So as we say here in Puerto Rico, pa'lante. I'll be on the lookout for your digital art, be it illustration, animation, collaborations. I'll be on the lookout. So yeah, pa'lante.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. His name is Juan Marcos Rivera, J Marcos Art, on all social media platforms. My dude, thank you once again.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.